Story 1. Definitely the classic Nokia ringtone for me. It's so nostalgic, and whenever I hear it, I'm instantly reminded of those simpler times when life wasn't dominated by constant notifications. Story 2. I use the codec sound from Metal Gear Solid. Pairs well with the smartwatch face that cycles through all the different characters from the game in the codec screen. Story 3. I had the virus detection alert sound from a very widely used free antivirus as my notification sound for a couple of years. It was always fun seeing people on a computer panic for a moment. Story 4. Omar's whistle from The Wire. Sat at a train station late at night, only about 6 or 7 people there. One guy's phone goes off and the man next to me just mumbles, "Oh no," and acted like he was going to run for it. We all laughed properly. Story 5. Somebody had the text tone from Cyberpunk 2077 while I was in line at the store. It's funny how you cannot hear something for a long time but recognize it immediately when you hear it again. Story 6. For a while, I had the message for you, sir segment from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Then later, I used the first part of Proto Man's intro whistle. Story 7. I'm currently using a Samsung phone, S22 Ultra, with a pen. When removing the pen and inserting it back, there are 2 different StarCraft Marine stim sounds that play. Yeah, that's the stuff. Below are just some of what I cycle through every couple of months for ringtones and notifications. StarCraft ringtones, Super Smash Bros. 4 ringtones, Diablo 2 and Warcraft ringtones, Super Nintendo sounds and ringtones, other random sounds and ringtones. Story 8. I'm an emergency medical technician. I was working on a cardiac arrest, performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation and such. It was an all-hands-on-deck type of situation where we didn't have enough people, so we were all just doing everything but kept it pretty organized. About 5 minutes in, the patient's alarm started going off in another room, set to a quacking ringtone. We had to listen to that for 20 straight minutes while we worked on her. Story 9. I used the opening cash register sound followed by the booming bass that is the opening riff of Pink Floyd's Money for a decade. I put that ringtone on my clients' numbers, so anytime I heard money, it was a client calling. Story 10. I was sitting in the doctor's office waiting room when my phone rang the Addams Family theme song, and I was embarrassed, but several people laughed and snapped their fingers. Nowadays, my ringtone is the Futurama theme song. Story 11. In the early 2000s, when ringtones were popular, someone's phone went off during a college lecture, and it was the opening notes from Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back. It sounded so familiar, and we were trying to place it until someone blurted out, "I like big butts and I cannot lie." Story 12. I've clipped Rick Sanchez, you son of a bitch, as well as We Tried That, but Kurt Russell got raped by Christmas critters. Though now I'm in a simple Pokemon Discovery chime. Story 13. I also have different notifications for different people, so I don't have to pick my phone up for certain people. The one I had for my ex-husband was the Psycho ringtone. I loved it, and he was too stupid to get the reference. Story 14. I know a lawyer whose text alert is the chung chung sound from Law and Order. It's especially hilarious when it goes off by accident in the courtroom. The judges try to be stern because there should be no phone sounds at all during court, but they can't help but giggle. Story 15. Everyone likes my, "You get that thing I sent you?" from Harvey Birdman, attorney at law, whenever I get an email. It has gone off at hilariously well-timed moments in conversations. Story 16. Back in college, this nerdy guy in my aviation class had his phone in his backpack. Our teaching assistant was this older, attractive white lady who was in the middle of explaining our quiz to us when his phone went off. Where the white women at? Went off twice in a completely quiet room until the teaching assistant said, "I'm right here," and had the classroom rolling. Story 17. Some guy's phone rang with the Halloween theme next to me. I said, "Nice ringtone," and he said, "It's the one for my ex-wife, so I know my psyche is about to be murdered." Story 18. About 10 years ago, I had the Kim Possible ringtone when Kim would get an alert on her phone. Quick, loud, and effective. I now use a Mandalorian soft ringtone notification. Story 19. This was my boss's tone for years. Just had a memory. I went to work for a steel company after my entertainment days, and when the boss sent us a group email, it would make the new email sound on everybody's computer in the cubicle farm. So I changed mine and put the arrow swoosh and message for you, sir, on mine. The first time it played, everybody stood up and looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Story 20. This has been a fun read. A few years back, I got into making ringtones. I did a little searching on my computer and still have them. They are in M4, format for iPhone. I figured it would be nice of me to share. Story 21. That Splinter Cell goggles sound. I'm sure I've heard it somewhere else before, but that's what I know it by. I got jump scared before when I heard someone's phone that had this. It was great. Story 22. The sheriff who dropped in on our concealed carry weapon class to talk about legal matters didn't turn his phone off. His wife called, and her special ringtone was Love Hurts from the band Nazareth. Story 23. My friend's notification sound is just someone screaming. They have trained their ear to hear it even when it's in a different room. They leave their notifications on at night, so if they get a message in the night, they will randomly hear a scream in the dark. It's hilarious. Story 24. I can set the scene for you. It's within the first week of my senior year of college, and what seems like a couple hundred of us are stuffed into this career office as we're being lectured on financial planning, exit interviews, and whatnot. We're just getting ready to have this mandatory meeting wrapped up and move on with our day. And then one of the students' phones goes off on the other side of the room. It's the sonic drowning music. Everyone's eyes start widening as we all hope that student picks up that message right away. You could not simultaneously love and hate this notification so much all at once. Story 25. I am pretty much all vibrating these days, but I used to have the opening 10 seconds of System of a Down Sweet Pea. It's a naturally cool-sounding guitar riff that is perfect for a ringtone. Also, one of the coin sounds from Super Mario for text. Probably from Mario 64. Story 26. Once, I met a contractor who had a circus ringtone for a couple of his employees. I asked him why he had a circus ringtone, and he said that a couple of his employees always had something wrong. Whenever he heard that ringtone, he could mentally prepare himself for whatever problem his employees had. Story 27. My text tone on my husband's phone is Chewbacca. It's got absolutely nothing to do with how I sound during sex. What would even make you think that? Story 28. I was so happy I had the legendary drop from Diablo 3 whenever I got a work email. I was eating McDonald's and a guy recognized it, and we started chatting about Diablo 3 while in line. 2 weeks later, I had severely underestimated just how many emails I would get in my new role. I was receiving about 50 to 70 legendary emails a day. I changed it back to something neutral when I was playing Diablo 3 and got stressed when I received a legendary drop. Story 29. Silence. That's the best. I'm exhausted from the cacophony of sounds coming from all these devices. The same goes for taking phone calls on speakerphone in public. Unless it's for emergency assistance, keep it on headset mode. Story 30. I used to have a ringtone for my stepfather that was just an angry Scottish man yelling at you. I also have an automation set up on my Apple products that anytime I plug the charger in it says, "Oh yes, put it in me, daddy." Story 31. Benson from regular show screaming, "Get back to work." They were asleep and kept getting texts. I must have heard it about 30 times on that train journey. Hopefully, they didn't get fired in the morning. Story 32. Madrid, 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 a la Madrid, y nada más, a la Madrid. Nos ponemos las pilas en el Estadio Santiago Bernabéu. Real Madrid song. Something good is about to happen. Story 33. Not from someone else's, but I know from mine the sound of charging. The little ping when it's connected. I've been having charging issues lately. Unfortunately, I cannot prank my friends by adding the Mario Kart theme song to their phones because they live so far away, so that's my half answer. One day, though. Story 34. The best notification sound I've heard? Definitely the classic ping 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 from the old Nokia phones. It's nostalgic and has that perfect, I'm about to get a message vibe. Simple but iconic. Story 35. Currently, Wheel of Fortune sound for text, Jetson's doorbell for ringtone, Windows 95 boot up for mail sending, Close Encounters of the Third Kind 5 notes for new mail or Old Spice whistle. Story 36. I live in Japan. One day, on a super crowded commuter train, my phone went off and I scrambled to turn my phone on silent. It was the Tyrannosaurus Rex roar from Jurassic Park. No regrets at all, though I have learned to just keep my phone on silent mode 24/7. Story 37. My inconsiderate friend in middle school had a woman faking an orgasm on his phone, and he would make it play on purpose in class, pretending it was an accident, even though we all knew he was just trying to be the class clown. Story 38. I've got the soundtrack from the first level of Turrican 2 as my ringtone. It's from the 1990s. My notification noise is the jingle from Aperture Laboratories. Story 39. The one called Baby Waltz on Samsung is pretty good. Sounds like deranged circus music, and I use it on my work phone. I have gotten some strange looks for sure. Story 40. I had John Lovitz from The Critic screaming, "I am not gay," about 15 years ago. It would always go off at the most random times. I had a friend compliment my haircut once, and it screamed out, "I am not gay." Story 41. Back during the flip phone era, I had a Matrix. I think my mom showed up as a devil with flames and an evil song. I forget what the song would have been, but she figured it out and was like, Story 42. My favorite was a guy at work who had the classic bullet ricochet noise from old movies. So every time his phone rang, it sounded like someone had just taken a shot at him. Story 43. I work in a busy electrophysiology lab at a major hospital. We do lots of pacemakers, defibrillators, and cardiac ablations. We have to check the clotting time of our patients and adjust the blood thinner, heparin, as needed. The timer on my phone, picked especially for our doctors, is the duck. Because ducks go quack. Story 44. My brother's notification for a text is someone saying, "You got a text? Be asterisk 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 asterisk." I have Michael Jackson's "Leave Me Alone" song as my ringtone. I think it's pretty funny. Story 45. I used to have a ringtone that was the Dandy Warhols. We used to be friends. But not the first verse that everyone knows from Veronica Mars. A line from the second verse. Or you called me up. Maybe I wasn't home. It amused me. Story 46. I made mine from bits from the Colbert Report. Starts off with Stephen shouting, "Hey, your phone is ringing. Your phone is ringing." And then goes into the intro music to the report. Story 47. I have the opening of Spinal Tap's Big Bottom as one of mine, and it always cracks me up when I see people start looking around when it goes off. Additionally, my husband's phone screams, "Ignore me." Story 48. The satellite phone rings from Jurassic Park 3. William H. Macy brings a satellite phone to the island, and the ringtone from it has been stuck in my head for 15 years. Some guy in Target last week had it as his ringtone, and I almost screamed. I love it. Story 49. I used to have one ringtone that was just some guy yelling, "F you." Like the first half of the word, F-U-C-K. It wasn't loud and obnoxious. It somehow sounded like some dude yelling F far away. It never sounded like it was coming from my pocket. I found it on one of those apps that had free ringtones in the mid-2010s. I haven't been able to find this little sound clip in years. Runner-up is when I used a sound clip of Hodder from Game of Thrones when he was making his voice echo in the well. Story 50. My call ringtone currently is from Saw. I want to play a game. Sometimes I'll change it to eerie laughter or clanging Halloween bells. My text message sound is pretty basic for my Motorola phone. Story 51. A customer had the Breath of the Wild sensor sound for something, like, "Shrine nearby. Beep beep." My coworker and I immediately recognized it, and we all recognized each other as nerds. Story 52. My son uses the radar ping from Aliens. I've used the codec, various Zelda ones like Rupee, Item Discovery, Beetle Thank You, Heart Recovery, Star Wars Lightsabers, Blasters, Sonic Charge, Minions Gibberish, and Gru. More recently, for a medication reminder, that little gremlin voice asks, "Drugs?" Story 53. My ringtone is from a TikTok I found of an adorable Japanese man who plays the piano and makes little jingles with animal noises. Mine is a kitty being very vocally happy eating their food, with his piano. Story 54. I have a clip of Alex Trebek saying, "Forget them." Normally, it takes people a second or two to realize what it says, and they never believe it's Trebek saying it. Story 55. I have Tim the Toolman Taylor's "Ooh You" as mine, and people tend to get a kick out of it. Other than that, I recently heard a Bam Chicka Wow Wow music sound that was pretty funny. Story 56. A coworker of mine has the phrases, "Suck my dick," "You fuck man," and "This is Kangaroo Court" from the state of Georgia versus Denver Fenton Allen video as incoming text messages for 2 contacts. Story 57. I clipped Happy Lebernacka from the Dan Lubatard rant after LeBron signed with the Heat and used it as my text tone for a few years. Story 58. I worked in a skilled nursing facility and we were sitting at the conference table waiting to start morning rounds. Our director walked in and, as if on cue, his iPhone text alert of Sherwood Forest went off to announce his entrance. All of us cracked up laughing. Story 59. The phone for my coworker who sat next to me would play the Star Wars theme when he gets calls, but occasionally I would hear the Darth Vader entrance theme music. I inquired about it after it had rung periodically one afternoon. It was the ringtone for his wife. Story 60. Probably my own. The Zelda solving the puzzle theme from the original Nintendo Entertainment System. And I also had the Jawa from Star Wars saying Utini for a while there. Story 61. My late grandmother-in-law set hers to be the silly chipmunk sound saying woo text message. It fit her goofy personality well, and it was great hearing it around the holidays as everyone texted her when they were on their way over. Story 62. Message for you, sir. The sound clip from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The scene where a peasant gets an arrow with a note attached piercing his chest. It was used for the cell phone incoming message. Story 63. Mario coin sound. From the original Mario 1 game. I was in a high-level meeting at work a few years ago, and my phone wasn't on silent. The chief executive officer laughed when he heard the coin sound and asked who the other Mario fan was in the room.